Fifth, the time has finally come for Congress to pass a digital Bill of Rights. This should include a right to digital due process. In other words, government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening.
Everyone, we're back again with the PEM podcast, and we're ready for another set of commentary on some videos. I had a very interesting couple of weeks. We've had a little hiatus here for a bit, had a lot of stuff going on. I can get into some of it at a later time. Right now, one of the things I want to express is people have been very caught up in so many kind of microcosms and you know, especially with the political circumstance, some people just very caught up in the election, some people extremely emotional about the election. In some cases, maybe that's warranted. In many, I don't believe it is. I think some people are placing way too much importance on something that isn't really affecting their lives all that much. I mean, if you were a woman that suffered a really serious health problem based off of pregnancy, then maybe that would hit pretty close to home, and you'd be upset about certain things when it comes to women's rights and you know, pregnancy and the whole abortion argument thing. But you know, for a lot of folks that were just getting very riled up about this, I don't think that they're going to see a massive shift personally for themselves. I think people feel really strongly about these things and think that these global trends with economics and things like that are affected at a level higher than I think they really are. You know, and we need, you know, actual economists to weigh in here. We need people who are truly experts in this. I'm not. What I've been around for a while, what I've noticed is from president to president and, you know, from each cabinet to the next cabinet, I haven't seen enormous drastic shifts, to be honest with you. I think people place a lot of importance on things. There's been changes over time. In the last 30 years, we've seen a massive shift in drug policy and the way the drugs are being enforced and how much drugs are actually making it into the country. I think more drugs are making it into the country now than ever before. So maybe that supports the argument that the border is more porous than we'd like. You know, all those things, though, I'm not an expert on any of them, and I just see people getting really riled up about things. And this is anecdotal. I just know some folks personally that really their lives weren't going to be super impacted by, you know, whoever was elected, that were extremely emotional, very upset, having trouble even functioning in their day-to-day lives during the election, and then a deep, you know, either a huge celebration or a huge depression based off of whatever their, you know, perspective was on this most recent election. And I think it was all overinflated sense of importance on this stuff. And the reason I say that is because I think the perspective that majority of people who are getting caught up in all of this sensationalism is that they're not, they're sort of living like immortals. They're sort of immortal beings in their mind. If you really apply using death as an advisor and realizing you could die at any moment and really embody that, you'll find that there are very few things that are really that important. And that's difficult to do. That can be really difficult to do. I think we're constantly looking to the future and how we're going to benefit or, you know, be harmed or lose benefit in some way based off of a future event. But all of those things are only potentials, and none of them are the actual reality. I don't think any of us really knows what's going to happen with the current president-elect and how that's going to progress. I hope it progresses in a way that's you know, beneficial for most people. I think there are some issues around the women's issue there that is pretty intense, depending on where you're at and what conditions you might be facing, you know, and what legal ramifications you might face based off of a miscarriage or something like that, that would be frightening. If you were in a place where they were kind of becoming draconian and possibly prosecuting you for something like that. But I don't really know what the realities are in actual hard case law and what the hard laws are on that and how that's, you just see this news that we can't trust the news media these days. I feel like there's just too much manipulation there to know, are we just sensationalizing individual single events that were anomalies, that maybe people acted unreasonably in the healthcare system or something like this, or overly fearful of the changes in laws and so therefore didn't care for someone in a way that they should have. Like all of that stuff is really murky territory. I think you need a lot more serious case study and look at what's going on health-wise. But I don't support the idea that fetus is really all that important. Life isn't that important, guys. That's the truth of it. If you really think one fetus is all that important, I don't know where you're getting that idea from. We've got 8 billion people on the planet, and supply and demand is certainly way out of balance. We've got a lot of supply. So there's, at the most basic economic level, if you're applying some religious belief to this, that also becomes a problem from the perspective of separation of church and state. I mean, go ahead and believe what you want, but don't push your beliefs on me. And I think that's where we start to get into all this debate stuff. People get really riled up. In the end, the point is that if you are able to viscerally face death, I ride my Ducati, I find myself in different types of dangerous situations sometimes. I was just out in the middle of the desert for a few days here. We were taking mescaline, 2CB, and LSD, and we're really off the beaten path, way out in the middle of nowhere. There's a certain sense of your mortality there. It got very cold to the point of shivering. Maybe for some of our group, the equipment wasn't rated where it should have been. Right, that really gives a different sense of things when you really can viscerally face your own mortality. I think you'll find that these things that you get so ridiculously upset and wound up about turn out to be not as important as you think they are. And I think, we've been talking a lot about road rage. I actually have had a recent road rage situation and where someone raged out of control on me. And I think what you're dealing with in those situations too are people that aren't actually fully viscerally aware of their own mortality, because these road rage incidents can end really poorly for people. Obviously, people die all the time in these things, and I don't think that prior to that serious event taking place that they're considering it from that perspective. They're in that immortal mindset, and so that's what I try to more and more get across to people that are depressed. I'll tell you when it's hard to be depressed. If you're faced with death in the moment, like literally faced with your own death from some serious situation. It could be a car wreck, it could be you almost drowned in the ocean, it could be hiking and you unfortunately get lost somehow and make a terrible mistake. I guarantee you that you're not in a state of depression while you're fearing for your life. They don't mix together. It's sort of similar to where people emphasize gratitude and say that if you can really embody a sense of gratitude, then you have it's almost like gratitude fills that space so that there isn't room for dissatisfaction or depression or feelings of lack or any of those things, because you fill the space with gratitude. But I think really viscerally understanding your own mortality is even more powerful, and realizing the lack of importance of many of the things that we take as being just so important, the earth-shattering importance of these things are far blown out of proportion. So that's how I wanted to open today, is say, hey, remember, you're going to die. All right, let's see what we got.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple, just like dominoes, one by one. They'll go down. That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case, because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. And here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis- or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified.
Wow.
These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses. To assist in these efforts, I am urging House Republicans to immediately send preservation letters, and we have to do this right now, to the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, and every Silicon Valley tech giant, ordering them not to destroy evidence of censorship. Third, upon my inauguration,
wonder if we can get our original channel back.
Congress to send a bill to my desk revising Section 230 to get big online platforms out of censorship business. From now on, digital platforms should only qualify for immunity protection under Section 230 if they meet high standards of neutrality, transparency, fairness, and non-discrimination.
Wow.
We should require these platforms to increase their efforts to take down unlawful content such as child exploitation and promoting terrorism, while dramatically curtailing their power to arbitrarily restrict lawful speech. Fourth, we need to break up the entire toxic censorship industry that has arisen under the false guise of tackling so-called mis- and disinformation. The federal government should immediately stop funding all nonprofits and academic programs that support this authoritarian project.
Yep.
If any U.S. university is discovered to have engaged in censorship activities or election interferences in the past, such as flagging social media content for removal of blacklisting, those universities should lose federal research dollars and federal student loan support for a period of 5 years and maybe more. We should also enact new laws laying out clear criminal penalties for federal bureaucrats who partner with private entities to do an end run around the Constitution and deprive Americans of their First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. In other words, deprive them of their vote. And once you lose those elections, and once you lose your borders like we have, you no longer have a country. Furthermore, to confront the problems of major platforms being infiltrated by legions of former deep staters and intelligence officials, there should be a 7-year cooling-off period before any employee of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DNI, DHS, or DOD is allowed to take a job at a company possessing vast quantities of U.S. user data. Fifth, the time has finally come for Congress to pass a digital Bill of Rights. This should include a right to digital due process. In other words, government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening, the right to a specific
Damn
explanation of the reason why,
Damn
and the right to a timely appeal.
Wow.
In addition, all users over the age of 18 should have the right to opt out of content moderation and curation entirely.
Yes.
And receive an unmanipulated stream of information if they so choose. The fight for free speech is a matter of victory or death for America and for the survival of Western civilization itself. When I am president, this whole rotten system of censorship and information control will be ripped out of the system at large.
He's got the Republican
There won't be anything left.
majority.
By
He can do
restoring
it.
free speech, we will begin
He has the power to do it.
reclaim our democracy and save our nation. Thank you, and God bless America.
He's not going to be fighting the Democrats on this because he's got the House, he's got Congress, so he can pull that off. Hey guys, I never saw Trump as a good option because I've seen the egoic side of him, at least was portrayed when we watch videos of him kind of name calling and doing different things. And I've always wondered though with people, one of the great examples when I say I've wondered with people was Floyd Mayweather as a fighter boxer, because he, when he became Money Making May, before he was, I believe he was Pretty Boy Floyd, he became Money Making May, he embodied this villain persona when he was a fighter, and I think it was very powerful in selling tickets and boosting ticket sales and pay-per-view and all those things, which made him a very rich man. So the question is, was Money Making May, Money May, sorry, I'm getting two things mixed up. Money Making Mitch is from Paid in Full. Money May, was Money May really an egomaniac, or was he a very smart businessman, right? And the question is that, I guess, with Trump, is Trump play up his egoic side because he knows voters sort of like that, and it's got that WWF quality, and so it sensationalizes things, and there's a certain subset of the population that really like that and vote for that? Or is that really who he is? I don't know. But I got to say, out of all the reservations I've had about him based off ego specifically, not policy, I don't, when it comes to politics, I think it's something I'm not an expert on, and as I said, I haven't seen drastic change a lot of times. If he were to do the things he's outlined here and actually do them and pull that off, I do think we'll have a massive shift. That actually could change things. That could really change things for a lot of us. We lost an entire year's worth of a channel. We're being shadow banned constantly for psychedelics and the things that we're trying to do that are for positive change, to really help people with mental health, to really give people information about psychedelics and the proper use of psychedelics, and the prudent, cautious perspective on mental health. And some of that is in opposition to the pharmaceutical regime's outlined pathway towards mental health, which I think has been extremely damaging in many cases. And we've seen the effects of that restriction. So, and I have a feeling many, many, many people out there, and of course we see it, on platforms like TikTok, where we have to say things like Mustache Man and Unalive and Pew Pew and Grape. All that stuff is so absurd to me. It's rubbed me so wrong from the beginning that growing up in the era I grew up in, there was only the 5, offensive words. I believe it was 5, however many it is. The 4-letter words you weren't allowed to say on radio or public television, which even that is, ridiculous to some, on some level. It depends on how you use words. If you use them in a lewd and really sexually directed fashion, in a deviously sexually directed fashion, I think that's inappropriate for children and things like that, of course. But the censorship has just gone so far out of control that we can't talk about world events, we can't talk about history, we can't talk about any number of important, life activities and things that are taking place in all areas of life because of the censorship that we've reached at this point. And the things he's saying there, wow. I mean, if they required due process to be kicked off and have content taken down, they should. I've been saying that for a long time. It's ridiculous. Those are our livelihoods there too. So you just have your livelihood just taken from you is insanity. And it's the same thing kind of with these other platforms. I wonder if this will actually affect as well something like an Airbnb or VRBO, if they can just take your livelihood away from you without some due process. I hope it affects all of these guys. These tech giants, they are tyrants. They've gotten way out of control. Got to say, out of everything he said there, if he really means it and goes forward with it, and with the Republican majority he has right now and does that, that's going to go a long way for me to start supporting Trump, and that'd be a strange thing for me. It's not. I haven't been anti-Trump or anything. Like I said, my concern is always ego. So when I see someone behaving or speaking in an egoic manner, and they're going to be our leader, I get a little concerned about that, because I think that ego is really our problem as a species. But it also could be part of something deeper for those who are really savvy manipulators of the marketplace. Whatever marketplace that is, whether it's the voter, situation, or whether it's pay-per-view dollars in a situation like Money May, some of these guys are just very good at what they're doing, and so maybe that's not really who they are. They're, posing a persona forward that gets people riled up. That could be always the case. I don't know enough, but boy, would I support what he's talking about there. I can't tell you that is, yes, there's a reason freedom of speech is the First Amendment. It's number one for a reason. So, I'd be afraid to get too hopeful yet. We'll see if this really happens. There's a lot of power there. I mean, so much power there that if he's really serious, could there be more attempts on his life? I don't know. Think about it, guys. I think what he's saying there is going to really rub some folks the wrong way, and some powerful people at that. So I hope his Secret Service is on point if he really means what he's saying there. Anyway, good stuff. That was nice to hear.
Donald Trump got reelected less than 2 days ago and is already making the world a safer place. Newsweek reported that a senior Hamas official has called for an immediate end to the war in the Gaza Strip following Donald Trump's victory. Houthi, a Yemeni rebel group backed by Iran, has also declared a ceasefire following Trump's victory. Vladimir Putin of Russia has also expressed his readiness for negotiations with Trump regarding the war in Ukraine. And then just in, as I'm editing this video, Donald Trump has accepted Vladimir Putin's offer to get on a call to discuss the end of the war in Ukraine. This is all happening very fast. Xi Jinping of China says they hope for a, quote, peaceful coexistence with the United States. Also adding that a second Trump term could, quote, mark a new beginning in China-U.S. relations if the chance that has been offered is not wasted. To summarize, in less than 48 hours of Trump getting re-elected, Hamas wants to end the war with Israel, an Iranian-backed group announced a ceasefire, Putin is willing to discuss the end of the war in Ukraine, and China is hoping for a peaceful coexistence with America. And bear in mind, Donald Trump isn't even in office yet. He's done more for world peace as president-elect in less than 2 days than the current administration has done in 4 years. This is what a real and strong leader who is respected looks like. His foreign policy of peace through strength seems to be working very well.
This video is a little different than the last one. It's too vague, and it's too optimistic. That would be great. It would be amazing if we were able to end these conflicts, and Trump has that effect. But Trump is one man. Obviously he has a lot of power, being the leader of the United States at this point with the Republican majority. But I think these are very complex issues with deep-seated histories that have a long history of violence, and also when we're dealing with world leaders like Xi Jinping, I would take what they say, with a grain of salt. That's kind of the art of war. Deception is the cornerstone and foundation of war. So I'm not just going to listen to what people say. That's way too juvenile a perspective. These people saying they want X, Y, and Z. We need to see what the actual results are, the actual actions that are taken, and what's really going on. That's a very complex world that he's talking about there. And I'm not in the world of intelligence or that side of things. So but I do understand. I've lived in this world long enough to know that just because people are saying things especially about something as large as a conflict in the Gaza Strip area or the Ukraine or any of these long-term hotspots. Yeah, I think it's a little over-optimistic to say that he's already making the world a safer place. If you guys remember the Bashar video, Bashar, and we've been following Bashar for a while. We've had a lot of, I have to say, a lot of the things that Bashar has said have resonated with the pragmatic ego management or mitigation perspective and the spiritual, emotional, mental, emotional, spiritual skilled perspective, which aligns with what this channel is about and with my ideology. So we were, for the most part, supportive of Bashar until he made some very bold statements. And if you guys who are maybe just watching this maybe don't know who Bashar is, I actually don't know the original guy's name. Do we have his name? Do you know his name? Daryl Anka is this supposed channeler who's channeling the consciousness of an alien in I guess another galaxy or another star system that has a higher level of intelligence and awareness and has made statements about the nature of our world, reality, life, and things like that. But never before had he really made political statements. And he did, prior to this election, say that he phrased it in a way of calling it the male and the female, which we all knew who he was referring to, of course, which was Kamala or Trump. And, he said it basically, if Trump was elected, we would see the end of civilization as we know it, end of society as we know it, and basically World War III. And that if Kamala was elected, we would see a confirmation of contact, I guess, with alien intelligence, and a whole far more positive outcome. I forget the exact words, but one of them had to do with contact with alien species. Oh, a massive increase in technology, I believe, with the aid of these alien species, I believe was what he was saying. Anyway, obviously two very polar opposites, right? World War III or collaborating with aliens and improving our technology. It gave us pause. It gave me pause. It made me question Bashar. I lost a certain amount of, I don't know if I want to say I lost respect or not. I did a little, maybe his respect. I'm not sure. It made me question Bashar a lot more when he made that statement. It seemed way too bold of a statement, and I also have, questions about predictions of the future. Even if we're talking about a Nostradamus type character who has made bold predictions, but I think those predictions are fairly likely. Conflict has been part of human existence since the beginning of, even before farming, but even really exponentially increased once we adopted agriculture as our main food sourcing methodology. So it's not that much of a stretch to predict a conflict in the future, even a wide-scale, massive conflict in the future, right? So predictions of the future, based off of what I understand of quantum mechanics, which is very minimal, but the Schrodinger wave equation and its collapse from infinite potentials to the singularity moment of reality as it unfolds, it seems to run a little counter to prediction unless time really isn't linear. And all of that stuff is a little beyond me at this point. My experience is that predicting the future is very, very difficult. And to make such a bold statement that Trump was going to be this harbinger of World War III, and obviously this is the opposite of that, what this gentleman's saying here. Either side of that, I think, is way too much significance placed on Trump himself, and I think global events and global conflict is a really complicated thing, and there's obviously some very powerful individuals of wealth who gain from these conflicts who are, angling towards their own, financial benefit. I think war is not necessarily about human life and is really about money in the end. I think that's always been what it's about. Money and control. I know we have these ideological issues around belief systems and like the Middle East and, Muslim perspective versus Christian. I think in the end what you're seeing is the people at the top who end up in control benefit the most financially. Their lives become the most comfortable. So I think, it's way too complicated. I would say, to really be sure what direction things are going to go. And I think this gentleman was way too optimistic, and I would say Bashar is way too pessimistic. And I would just say I have no idea what's going to happen. Based off the first video, again, very, very much in support of the things Trump was saying there. That's amazing. But that is at home a domestic issue of our own freedom of speech with a Republican-controlled House and Congress and things like that. I think you can make those statements and possibly see that outcome happen. But when you start talking about global conflict and so many moving parts and making definitive statements about what the outcomes of those are going to be, even if you have a treaty that ceases fire, as we've seen in the past, doesn't mean a whole lot. That conflict can reemerge at any point. So I think there's way too aggressive of an optimism and saying, oh, Trump's making the world a safer place. I mean, great. I get that you support him, but I think that's a little naive. That's all I'm saying.
I chose family. I chose women. I chose America. I love you. I love all of this.
All of the people who voted for him will be like happy and they'll just be celebrating. And everyone else, everyone who feels threatened by him is fucking scared. Like we're scared for our lives. We're scared for our friends.
If you've lost faith in humanity, this is your villain origin story. If you've lost faith in humanity, clap your hands. You will never make me give up hope. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter.
What the hell? You cannot be serious. How did I wake up to this garbage as my president? That's right, garbage. I went to bed last night and she was ahead. I woke up to this freaking nightmare. Donald Trump.
Oh, that guy. Oh, yeah. This is why this directly ties into what I was saying as we open. Those people are immortals. They're living in an immortal mindset. They've placed way too much importance on this, something that's going to have a fairly minimal impact on their lives. Like I said, the women's health issue is, yeah, I mean, I do think that's unfortunate that things went in that direction, honestly, because I don't see a fetus or life even as that important. Once a life is here, absolutely it should be protected. Otherwise, we end up in a really dangerous and scary place. But, I was a fetus once, and I don't remember it all. And if I had been aborted, I think things would have been a little easier. To be honest with you, I don't support all of that stuff. But that's something that people are going to be raging on for a long time until we get past the religious dogma and religion as a disease that's infected the minds of humans for so long. But at the same time, I don't think that that's all that was affecting those people's mindsets. For some reason, they were certain, and understand these are people that know it all. They know that that Kamala was the better choice and that she would have made our world a better place. How do they know that? I don't know how they know that. I don't know. I've never known for sure whether Trump or Kamala or whatever the circumstance is going to be a better or worse choice. I actually don't know. Because, it's such a dynamic situation, and luckily we aren't in a dictatorship, right? We don't live these people that think Trump's going to become a dictator. My mother's one of those people. There's people, I'm sure all of you have family members that believe in interesting political views that you don't agree with. My mother sees a very polarized version of things. I think, there's no way to really know that. And as far as like someone taking over and becoming a dictator in our country, I think that would take a lot. I think that would really be a huge thing. I think there'd be enough opposing force. And I'm not naive. It can go wrong. I mean, if you look at history, and again, not a historical expert, but looking at Adolf Hitler taking control of Germany and that progression is pretty frightening. But it was in a particular circumstance, a particular environment post World War I, and a lot of things that happened that led to his ability to achieve that level of nationwide delusion and psychosis, I guess I would say. But I don't think that's what's happening in our world here in the United States. And I think that it's really hard to tell what the truth is. When you hear that first video of Trump talking about freedom of speech, I have to say that sounds very reasonable and very much in alignment with the Constitution of these United States. So, these people getting so upset, they just know they know, they're like wizards with a crystal ball that know what's happening, and they decided that this is just the, end of the world for everyone. It's crazy. It really is a type of delusional psychosis that they're experiencing. And again, go do something with your life. Realize that there's so much other things going on, and that you're not immortal, and you could die at any point, and that will give you a different perspective on how important this really is. I feel because we're this social species, those people there, I think, are very much a part of social networks and a social belonging that has an identity that's rooted in that liberalism and rooted in that support of Kamala and rooted in all of that. And their very identity has been threatened by the fact that Trump was elected, or their identity is maybe beyond even threatened. They feel like their identity is being ripped from them, which is all ego. That the attachment to identity is what the very root fundamental nature of ego is. And so they're really stuck in that matrix. They're really stuck in that matrix. So it's unfortunate they're suffering, but it's an absurdity. It's a ridiculousness to allow yourself to be so consumed, and then even have the arrogance to think that that things are going to be so much more terrible. As I said, the women's health issue is it's its own thing, and I think states that support the other side of that issue, and either side of that issue, are going to make their laws, according to that. Here in California, I don't think you'll have the type of issues that you're going to have in Texas or Arkansas or whatever one of these deeply red states that leans towards anti-abortion is leaning towards. So if you have an issue with that, yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe you have to move. I do think that is rooted in the religious dogma and issues that we have in this country, and sadly so. And religion has been a toxic force on this planet for a very long time. For those of you who are deeply religious and hate what I'm saying, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to just take a look at history and get out of your own dogmatic mindset, and realize that life is not as important as you're saying it is. It's not as sacred as you're saying it is. In fact, there's a real contradiction in the faith itself, if you believe that fetus being aborted is some huge loss in some way. Because in my deepest level interpretation of all spiritual thought, including organized religion, is this idea that there's much more to this world than our physical existence within this time frame of what we call life. So when you apply that much importance to this life, even though we're really eternal creatures, I think there's a logical contradiction embedded in that is really interesting, that these religious folks seem to succumb to that logical contradiction. So it's unfortunate that we're stuck there, but there's workarounds, there's a lot going on. We'll see how draconian that becomes, and we'll also see the outcomes that happen there. Maybe as these, they hate to say it, and it's the worst part of sometimes the casualties of different conflicts may be to see the horrendous, health outcomes that may happen from women who don't receive the care that they should receive. And maybe that'll change this, policy going forward as family members of deeply, conditioned folks suffer the consequences of those policies. But that's one issue. There's so many other issues. And, to think that what's going to happen is crazy, that you don't know what's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. So I think that's the big arrogance I see in a lot of people who seem to think they know. And that subset, that group of people there that were just commenting with their tears and the insane reaction they're having, they don't know. So, guys, we're going to leave it there. and political environment is a very interesting one. I'm hopeful for free speech, because if you have free speech, then you can argue about, you know, women's health. You can argue about your right to carry a firearm or protect yourself. You can argue and speak about all these things on these platforms and really not have your freedom restricted, and be able to have public debate about these things. So I think that First Amendment is the most important one, and we can see a lot of change based off of open discussion and debate, where we won't see it in a censored world. We won't see effective positive change in a censored world. So that's a great start, even if you feel like it's a terrible situation around the debate of abortion and that situation. At least maybe you'll have the ability to speak out about that. So we'll see how it goes. But I think, stop the idea that you have a crystal ball and you know what the future is going to be. You definitely don't. None of us do. So not even the shamans and the mystics out there. I think that prediction of the future is actually somewhat of a myth. Unless time isn't linear, and maybe it isn't, and maybe there is a way to kind of see things, but then I think that opens you up to the multidimensional verse, where these outcomes are happening in different dimensional frameworks. And that just becomes a huge philosophical debate and talk, which is, I think, entertaining, but without certain technology or actual strict practice that leads to the ability to work on those things, which I'm not at a level there. It's all just really entertainment at that point. So it's been a good one, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Looking forward to it. Hey guys, thanks for watching. For long form, you can find us on YouTube and Rumble. For short highlight clips from the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. Please visit psychedelis.com. You can find all sorts of assets and resources in the psychedelic business space, including retreat centers, clinics, ketamine clinics, individual integration coaches, guides, shamans, you name it. We've also got products, chocolate bars, gummies, spores, blue lotus flower, all kinds of things. Go on and check it out. There's even more than that on there. If you would like more content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to ask a specific question or submit videos for me to react to directly, please email us at ThePemPod@gmail.com. All right, guys.